Good evening. I mean, technically it's evening, but it's bright out. Also, Bloomington, Indiana, right now has a tornado watch apparently from 5:40 till 11 p.m.
Oh wow.
It is clear skies, and I don't think it's that windy, but what do I know? It's just one of those moments where it says tornado watch, and I know that there's going to be a bunch of Hoosiers like, okay, I'll go outside and watch for it.
It can hit so quickly though
Yeah,
in Bloomington.
yeah, it's true.
Oh shit, it's like right south of you right now.
Oh, wait.
So it's like on the way. I see it on the map.
Okay, the map's updating. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a really bright red spot.
It's like purple on mine. Oh, you know what? You might get
I
missed.
think it's gonna miss us.
I think you're gonna I think it's gonna miss you.
It's gonna hit that it's gonna see the lake and say, oh man, I'm gonna go take a break
It's
over there.
very purple though. It's some of the brightest purple I've ever seen.
It's like 76 degrees outside. Apparently, I wouldn't have thought it was that hot. It's really nice out, like extremely nice out. I mean, I'm not complaining. Obviously, we're in the middle of spring and it's beautiful out and it's fantastic because I can go outside in shorts and not, regret my decision to wear shorts. But yeah, it's also that time of year when the weather will change in 10 minutes and you just wouldn't even think it was going to be like that. Then again, this year, this entire whole ass year has been a lot of like, whoa, I didn't think it was going to be like that. So I think so. In the 4 months of 2025, I've come to the realization that I am my expectations are completely out of line with reality in terms of the things that I keep being fed by the news.
Yeah, it's really, I think there is this propensity for people to revel in what ends up being recreational. I don't want to say self pity so much as like it's like this recreational sadness that's also trying to encourage other people to join in. It's a defeatist attitude, but it's also a social activity. And the right wing did it under Biden, and the left wing did it under Trump. I mean, I don't want to say left wing. The Democrats did it under Trump the first time, and they're doing it again. But in this, it's almost like there's this segment of Democrats that actually wants the Handmaid's Tale to come true, but they just aren't brave enough to admit that they want it to come true. They're like, I'm gonna pretend I'm fighting against fascism, but I actually want to be a fascist.
I think those are called dinos, Democrats in name only.
I mean, I don't think I think they call them dinos, but I think the regular Democratic Party is just that. I don't think it's in name only anymore, in that Democrats are right wing, as far as I'm concerned, as somebody who's actually on the left. So there's this element of Democrats are social justice warrior in rhetoric only. And when it comes down to it,
Oh yeah, lots
they're,
of virtue signaling.
yeah.
All the virtue signaling.
They'll take all the knees and fucking do all the moments of silence. And it's like the Democratic equivalent of thoughts and prayers. And when it comes time to actually do something legislation wise, Democrats, not only did they not do anything, they'll make it seem like they can't do anything and then try to use their feigned impotence as a reason to try to elect them next cycle again. It's like, my hands were tied this whole cycle because I was out campaigning for the next cycle. So you're going to have to vote for me again. And that's when I'll fix all the problems that I ran on the previous cycle. And it's
In
hard to watch.
since I became old enough to vote, there's been a Democrat in office for like, let's see, most of it, I think. How many terms was GW in office? Like two,
Yeah.
and Trump was in there once before, and now again. But Obama was in there twice. Like Biden was in there at least one time.
Mm-hmm.
But right before I could vote, Clinton was in there for 2 terms.
I think it felt thrown off because Biden was the vice president, so he was in there.
Yeah, he was in there for like 3 terms. It's so messed up. Even Dick Cheney didn't stick around for that long. Like, I don't know. I don't want to blame the Democrats for choosing the wrong person or
I
coming up
mean,
with a
I
shitty
do.
platform.
I do. Because they fucking Debbie Wasserman Schultz pushed Bernie out when Hillary was running, and then they lost that election, which is basically them pushing out Bernie the first time is how we got Trump. And it's like, I definitely want to hold them accountable, that's exactly why I don't identify as a Democrat. I'm actually on the left. And that's also why I can't, when Democrats claim to be the left counterpart to the Republicans, like I can't acknowledge that as anything but a lie or some sort of lack of self-awareness.
It's a semantic thing that's like, well, we're left of the Republicans.
Right. I mean, in rhetoric only, not in reality, because it's like Obama was drone striking people, women and children and fucking non-combatants.
Well, that was
Joe
going on in
Biden
like
was drone
Yemen.
striking people. They were both deporting people, putting kids in fucking cages. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's not like suddenly the cops started following the rule of law because we had Obama or Biden. And that's why I hated when Democrats acted like, oh, just give them time. And like, no, motherfucker, they need to be doing executive orders the way Trump was doing them towards like making cops have body cams that they can't turn off or some shit. Like, if a cop turned off his body cam, he should never be able to be a cop again, ever. The one time. You get one time, you're done. No, gonna review. No, you're done. You turn your body cam off, that should be an immediately fireable offense, and then have everything you've done fucking reviewed with the fucking fine-tooth comb. But did Obama or Biden do any of that? No, they gave them more militarized fucking weapons. So that's where I can't and
here's some more
buy leftists. Right, exactly. Have you, man, the Bloomington goddamn tiny town is so armed.
They still have that damn Bearcat. They won't get rid of it. Like,
that's why they keep having to do crazy alarms over shit that's not really that extreme probably every quarter just to justify keeping a militarized police force. Because I remember they would send out such the notifications about when emergencies are happening would go out so randomly at 2 or 3 in the morning and wake me up. And living in Detroit, this shit rarely ever happens here, where I'm like, I know the cops have actual crime to deal with, but as a citizen, they're not just being like, hey, emergency, there's a goddamn shooting happening somewhere that's not even remotely close to you, but I'm going to wake you up at 2 in the morning just to fucking gaslight you into thinking you need my police protection. Or when they said there was a active shooter on campus and then they trapped him in the sewer and then they couldn't find a gun. They never found a fucking gun, but they had the campus locked down for at least 2 hours.
And I had a friend
lockdown.
I had a friend who got stuck at that print shop on the corner, catty corner from that Rallies, where the police started their made their entry into the tunnel network, and they shared some pictures with me of dudes in full tactical gear, like body armor, helmets, night vision shit, getting ready to go storm the tunnel system. Crazy stuff, like not the kind of thing I ever would have expected to see in Bloomington. I mean, I didn't see it, but I saw something close enough to seeing it.
Meanwhile, they never even found a goddamn gun.
If they wanted to actually do something, they'd figure out a way to keep the indigent population of Bloomington from shitting in Kroger bags in the alleys between houses.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Is that really happening?
That's a thing.
Oh my God.
They don't have to completely drop trow. They can do it like standing.
Man, it's so crazy to see what a supposedly Christian country is willing to let happen to human beings in the name of capitalism.
Well, and supply side Jesus, man. They fucking supply side Jesus.
And I guess every time there's a holiday, we just go along with it. But I'm like, it's not a good capitalist to take a holiday off. So why are they doing it for Christianity? What's that all about? There's something inherently weird about this thing that claims to be about profits at all costs, then turning around and be like, you know what, we're gonna take a day off, or if we're not gonna take a day off, we're gonna pretend that we value our workers and pay them more, but it's because of this supposedly Christian holiday, and that's in this country. It's been taken for granted for so long, but again, that's just not even good capitalism. Capitalism should be 365 fucking 24/7. What what's up with the random holidays? That that
I don't even think the holidays matter because there. I mean, there used to be a time when there was only the holiday decoration stuff specific to the holiday within like a month of the holiday.
no,
That
I'm
stuff's
not
up
I'm not
year
saying
round.
no.
We can have Christmas anytime we want.
Capitalism shouldn't take any hours off if it's truly capitalism. But on the one hand, it will outsource jobs to fucking child slaves across the ocean just as long as it's out of sight. But then on the other hand, it's
Oh, I think it's an aspiration thing. Like only certain
I
class
mean,
of
I don't
citizens can even afford to celebrate Christmas.
know. And again, it's like if it were if it were full capitalism, they would find every goddamn religion, every single god, and have a goddamn
Oh, like
hallmark.
a Christmas Hana Kwanzaa bot.
Not even just those three,
I know
like
that's just the ones that get lumped together.
All the Hindu gods should get capitalist recognition just to exploit it, but it doesn't. Not only does it not recognize the Hindu gods, it acts like Hinduism doesn't even exist. But in terms of the way it's willing to exploit Christian, like Christian traditions and holidays for the sake of then creating something around it, but then completely ignore the other ones, that's just inherently there's something terribly wrong there. It's like the most philosophically inconsistent thing about capitalism in a way where I'm like, it seems innocuous, but again, it's like if capitalism was really the thing it says, it shouldn't take any days off, let alone only recognize one main religion. Like, because that's what's there was a period in American capitalism where you could go to McDonald's at any time of day.
Yeah, those are the good old
Not
days.
just at any time of day, you could get breakfast at any time of day. That's when
Yeah.
capitalism peaked, bro.
Like
I
1998,
can pinpoint.
1999. Yeah.
No, it was like circa like it started in 90s, but then it peaked in like 2016, 2017. Cause yeah, capitalism was definitely starting to peak around 96. And then I want to say it was like a sharp the internet bubble
Like seriously, from the moment I was a
created
sophomore
a
in high
sharp
school,
peak
we had
in
options for
capitalism.
like 24-hour stuff that was never there before. Like I remember being a sophomore in high school and hanging out with my friends on the weekend, and we find ourselves at Walmart at 2 or 3 in the morning, just wandering around, like nothing to do except this place is open, and then we'd go to Steak and Shake because that was the only other place that was open. Well, McDonald's might have been open. One of them would have been. Kroger.
Well, and I mean, and on that note, it's like there was so much free flowing capital that if you just wanted to do work, it was super easy to go. This is why boomers think you can just walk into a place and fucking plop down an application and then just get a call back the next day, because it shit used to be like that. There used to be so much demand for work, and in the process of that demand existing, there was enough capital to support somebody walking in and getting hired. And that type of economic stability is something that previous generation took for granted because it was their entire lives. THERE entire lives. And then in the process, we saw it for the first 20 years and 21 for you, right around the 20, like 2004, 2005, shit started to contract. And then the full-on financial crisis is when the contraction was officially recognized as existing, and it started in um the banking and real estate sector, and people didn't take that shit seriously except for the ones whose 401ks got hit immediately. But then there was this economic contraction that has only been seen since the fucking first Great Depression, but it surpassed it in a way that Americans still have not been able to handle. In that the Great Depression was big, but what happened between 2008 and now was so much bigger because the economy had grown so much more that it's like they can't, not only can they not handle it, I don't think they can fathom it yet. It's just such a shock that it's like Americans have shielded their psyches from acknowledging that their empire has fallen so much. And I'll point out how in that America used to be able to coup entire countries. Now they can't even win a proxy war. Not only can they not win a proxy war, they can't win a proxy war against entities that don't even have a country, let alone national capital backing. And that's where I'm like, it sucks what's happening. It obviously is one of the worst. I don't want to understate the level of atrocities that is occurring in terms of military industrial trying to create a war against a population of people that does not have a fucking state, but make it seem like they're at some sort of equivalent war. That is one of the worst atrocities in human history. If there is anything remotely close to a silver lining, it's that they can't fucking win. They've been at it for going on 2 years now. And they've killed a lot of fucking people. That's not even in question. But they can't win. They can't. This is something America used to be able to actually like start a conflict and on paper, quote unquote, win a conflict. In that, if you end a conflict on what seems to be your own terms, that's the closest thing that can be remotely close to be call it a win without some sort of complete detachment from humanity. In that, yeah, nobody wins when war happens. So that's what I mean, in that if somebody starts a war, in their minds, they are trying to win that war. But in reality, obviously, nobody in humanity wins. So that's where I mean, like, there's nothing to me about what's happening that is positive. But in all of that, there is undeniable evidence that the military industrial machine it's the weakest it has ever been. And it's in the same scenario as Vietnam, when the biggest military on the face of the planet got beat by farmers. And so that's why I mean, it's America's the most dangerous when its ego is being bashed, but also its inability to lash out in the same way as it used to is showing some sort of cracks in the American might. And it's like, they've invested so much in certain things, such as surveillance and misinformation, that it's had to lean on those things in an attempt to try to regain control. But inherently, those two specific things work in counter movement to one's capacity to exert top-down authority. It's like no one will be able to control Americans anymore because no one trusts authority so much that, yeah, he has his cult, but everybody else, at any given time, it's like only 30% of the American population is now going to be part of a political cult, of a single political cult. Because it's like, yeah, you might have a bunch of different political cults, but there's so much contrarianism tied into American culture that if somebody looks like they're becoming too popular, then it becomes popular to hate that person. So it's like, this is like why that sort of sown distrust makes it impossible to then create a unilateral position where
Man,
it's
what
like
a fucked up morality.
right, yeah, we're living in such a post
It's
Brave New World, post 1984.
it's
Fucking, it's post Fahrenheit 451.
but it's still not. But it's not postmodern. It's like it's regressive.
But here's the issue: is we've never been modern, and I didn't come up with that framing. That's Bruno Latour.
Yeah, I know.
That's man. Once I read Bruno Latour's "We Never Been Modern," everything made so much fucking sense. But it's also in tandem.
Well, we've been sold the lie that we're
Roland Barthes. What is the one? Roland Barthes mythologies, and then George Kubler's Shape of Time. Like, if someone taught those three books together, like, you wouldn't need to read any more than those three. I mean, you could add in shit like The Medium is the Message,
You might
just
want
to further
read more, just to have a broadened horizon.
but unpacking those three things together. And then, I mean, again, it's like you there's this impetus to want to throw in more, like, oh, I want to throw in Joseph Campbell and fucking, it's like you can take that in all these different directions. But one, you could teach whole classes. I mean, I'm sure people do teach individual classes on those books individually.
I'm sure that there are philosophy classes that are taught entirely on one.
Oh yeah,
manuscript.
yeah.
Not even
unquestionably,
not even in an entire piece.
But it was like, we've never been modern.
Yeah.
Put everything into a perspective that if I hadn't read those things previously, then I don't think it would have clicked as much as it did, in that there is a very strong impetus to make it feel like the technology is what makes one.
Oh yes,
aggressive.
yes. There's a prevailing theory that the integration of technology is actually what will make us postmodern. That engaging in hyper real experience and hyper real activities, which are essentially just virtualized complex games or movies, will somehow supplant the need for real life experience. And I think that this is a really dangerous idea that really it can only. This is like a weird, like, psyop attempt by tech bros, I think, because there's no virtualized experience that can actually ever become the real thing. That's like the definition of a virtualized experience. It in itself could become its own thing, but it'll never be what it's attempting to virtualize. Get right next to it. It can be almost. Can even like peer into reality from that virtual space, but the virtual space is always, contained, and the technology is always its own thing. We can't just pretend that integrating technology and having higher resolution displays closer to our eyes so we can't even tell that it's not real is somehow a replacement for actual going outside and experiencing life. It's scary. There's
Well, okay, here's the issue. There's thresholds, and some people have never touched enough grass to create a threshold that's high enough for where technology has hit to then make it feel like they are missing out on the real world. And that's the problem to me. It's like this is the same thing
yeah.
when people who are like, "Oh, AI is helping me be so creative." It's like, well, you were never fucking creative in the first place, so you have no idea what it means to be creative. So of course you're gonna think AI is helping you be fucking creative, dipshit. Like that's like how I feel about people who have not had enough life experience who then prefer the online or virtual experience, in that it can be supplemental, but if you've lived enough life, as you're alluding to, it's never, there's no virtual machine construct setup, not even Ready Player One would compare to real life. The reason Ready Player One is a thing is because they live in a dystopian fucking hellscape where everything in the real world sucks.
Yeah.
And so that's why they escape into the fucking virtual world, not because the virtual world's cool, it's because the real world sucks. Same thing with fucking Matrix. So when people don't understand those parts of the story and all they see is the kung fu, or all they see is like the fucking VR setup, and they're like, "Oh, I really want one of those VR setups," is like, no, you're missing the entire fucking point. And I think that's where it's dangerous to sort of have these okay, let me rephrase that. Having people who are not well versed in literature, have low media literacy, engaging with high level complex media is dangerous, in that they may see something that's only one part of the message and hyper focus on that part and completely miss the superlative message, to the point that people will be like, don't make Star Wars political. And then Star Wars had to come out and be like, hey, war is in the fucking name. It's literally the second word in the fucking title. War is political inherently. You cannot detach political.
The story revolves around an emperor and an empire, or a republic and a can like essentially a prime minister, or freaking queens and princesses and princes and what. Yeah, let's try and make a story about the feudal galaxy that isn't political. Let's make Game of Thrones but not political. Let's see how long that lasts. That's like the whole point of that kind of story, isn't it? To have some kind of like political tension so that adults are interested while kids are watching flashing lights.
I mean, I think you get that because you're not a fucking idiot. But I think there's this whole class of American idiot that has a gigantic chunk of their brain that is still dedicated to base function and has never fully developed. And so they don't actually have the capacity to engage with the media at a deeper level. So they look at Spider-Man and they look at Doctor Strange, and all they see is the bright flashing lights. And they do get upset when it even remotely skirts any sort of deeper meaning. Not because they actually hate the message, it's because they can't understand the message, and that scares them. And so that's what I see with Americans. Like okay, myself included, there was a whole generation of people that had like imagined, and I say that specifically, we all had imagined Tank Man in Tiananmen Square being run over by the tank. Well, that never happened. And so in our minds, because of the way that we were inundated with imagery, inundated with propaganda, there are certain things that we've all seen and we've all been inundated with to construct these backdrops and landscapes and tapestries of information that we don't even really fucking pay attention to and we don't even know exist unless you actively deprogram it and deconstruct it. And this is where Timothy Leary was a broken clock, where it's like, yeah, he got that part right, but he was also a fucking weirdo creep. So it's like, you can't, you can like take certain things from individuals without becoming part of their cult and recognize that, like, yeah, Timothy Leary definitely got some shit right, but he's not somebody that I'm gonna like look up to and make one of my heroes because of, yeah. But increasingly, it's become more difficult for that type of existence, in that the cult of celebrity became so much about stan culture, and then because an individual in that stan cult has the duty to defend whoever they're standing, it's like you almost have to pick your celebrity, and all your time online is going to basically be spent defending that person. And once everyone got so used to that existence, it's basically like we have these mini religions, and sometimes stars break out and they get mega religions like the Bayhive or the Swifties or the Juggalos or the Rogan cult, like the Manosphere. There's all these mini cults that are also, they overlap with other religions, but not necessarily like in a way that one would expect. So it's like, it's not until someone does a really scientific study, I can make a bunch of speculation about it, but I would inevitably end up saying something that was definitively wrong once someone does the study. But that's where I'm like, I'm not trying to speculate on how it's falling or how it's playing out, but there's definitely something with, and it started with Twitter and it started with the lexicon of followers and Ashton Kutcher basically creating these one-way dialogues between celebrities and their audiences that are very similar to what would amount to a digital pulpit. And once you have your digital pulpit, it got turned into this advertising venue where influencers are like, okay, if I build a bunch of followers, then I can advertise to them and sell marketing space to them, or advertise my own product and make it so that they, you know, if I sell them a bunch of swag or message people and make it seem like I'm accessible, like Dane Cook did, then you can create this whole dedicated audience that will then give their money to you so you can keep doing that thing. And there were enough people that used that method of monetization that was also socialization, and society quickly adopted that as something that was normal. But now that we've cycled through it and we've had so many people abuse it, it's like, I don't know if there's going to be any new super famous person after like Mr. Beast or I Show Speed. It's like the cults are getting smaller and smaller. So it's like,
Man,
I
remember
feel like,
when our influencers who tried to sell us stuff were guys like Ron Popeil, who, like Ron Popeil, the guy who invented the spray on hair or the food dehydrator or the magic food
or
slice
like
chopper.
Billy Mays.
Yeah, those like late night
Slap
infomercial
chop.
dudes who would like, they would claim to have invented some product and then they would bring it to market and they would sell it to you right now and only on TV. You can't buy it in stores. If you buy it right now, I'll give you a limited edition, like your choice of whatever 50 or 48 continental U.S. states Jello mold, like, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the beginning of it, because Slap Chop guy, he did like underground comedy special or some shit where do you remember when like at a certain point of the day TV channels would basically switch over to adult stuff and then they would start advertising like sex lines and fucking girls gone wild videos and um adult comedy that's not necessarily like sexual, but it would be like Jerky Boys
Yeah, yeah,
Uncensored or something like that.
really raunchy shit.
Yeah, and it's like there was this transition where I remember it was like it was on cable explicitly, like it didn't happen as much on or it didn't happen at all on network television. But I remember seeing it happen and it feels like cable was trying to compete with the internet, but it wasn't admitting to anyone, and there was no narrative around cable having to directly compete with the internet at the time. But this is where it was like it became more obvious through um, video rentals when like Netflix used to be DVD based. That shit is so crazy to think about them sending out physical DVDs and Blockbuster still being around. And there's this weird overlap where physical media stores and physical media rental places still were existing and trying to compete with online rental places before there was enough bandwidth to just stream. And it was like shit moved so fast and businesses did not move fast enough that it was like, I think it was impossible for a lot of people to see that cycle happen, but not enough people put time and effort into learning about the cycles to understand what was actually happening. And I feel like living through it gave people the false sense of like, oh, I understand tech cycles now. Because and I and the reason I say that
I'm serious. No, you're right. And I know you're right because there have been so many people who've told me that they understand things like cryptocurrency and Bitcoin.
yes,
and,
that was the next thing.
It's like, oh man, next thing they're gonna start telling me they didn't understand what mining actually was.
Well, and the only reason I said it that way is because I felt like when it was happening, when the internet boom was happening, I felt like it was happening around me and I could not understand how to sort of leverage it in the way that all these capitalists were doing. And so when cryptocurrency hit, I was like, I'm going, even if I don't necessarily actively leverage it, I'm going to study what's happening to see how things are getting leveraged and see how other people are leveraging things. And I learned that there were a lot of similarities to the gold rush, but it was also enough differences to actually make it worth studying, and where putting the effort into learning those things paid off in that I felt like the knowledge was a reward in itself, and I didn't have to worry about like, oh, am I going to take this knowledge and apply it and make some money on the crypto now or whatever. And it's like, no, that's not actually the important part. But what I also realized is that process, the dopamine reward system has been hijacked so much that people, this gets back to the earlier conversation, in that people no longer can wait long periods of time for what amounts to a very small dopamine hit. But the issue is the more time between dopamine hits, those rewards then become much more stimulating in that reducing the amount of stimulation in the day like vis-a-vis one's screen time, and not even just screen time, how much is one's engaged in screen time related activities that are going to cause dopamine responses beyond just the flashing lights. It's those types of self-regulation uh, activities that a lot of people had trouble with when internet was emerging. They had way more trouble with when pornography became super accessible. And then in the process, then when smartphones emerged, it was like there's a full-on segment of society that has no even desire to self-regulate dopamine hits. And so this is where, to me, it's like it's super easy to pinpoint like smartphones as the time when attention spans broke down or people started becoming obsessed with pleasure, but it's not actually that simple. And the hijacking of dopamine response has been so gradual, but in the process, the capacity for people to increase their dopamine in I don't want to say
Man, no, you
intake,
know what?
but
No,
it's dopamine
you're.
production.
I agree. I actually have been thinking about this for since I was mowing the lawn earlier. That like convincing everyone who has a lawn that all of their neighbors are judging them and that all of their neighbors care has to be the most and probably the only successful psyop that America has ever perpetuated against its own people. And I think that might be the point that you're talking about. That's the inflection point when how can we extract little bits of dopamine out of these little acts of things that people are going to do? How can we focus them to do this? We can get them to buy more gasoline for their lawnmower. They can buy a bigger lawnmower. Hell, we can get them to buy a bigger lawn.
Because every time somebody buys something, that dopamine reward system gets hijacked. It's like the act of purchasing something, even if it's just knowing that purchasing that thing is going to make you slightly safer or make your life easier, then it like reduces the stress, like cortisol release. So it's like people get trapped in these cycles of stress based on not being able to buy things, and then dopamine rewards based on buying things. Because the reason what's so crazy to me is the only reason I even know that I can articulate it is when I was 3D printing something, I use supports so it doesn't like warp or deform on areas that like have overhangs. And when I was breaking off the supports, I was like, oh, this feels like I'm opening something out of a bag, like, or out of a box. Like, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is like, I shouldn't, I printed this. I shouldn't be relating this to consumerism. Like, I shouldn't be relating this experience to like the process of purchasing something and then unpacking something that someone else has constructed, because I did all of this and this is like more equivalent to the process of acquiring a block of marble and then whittling a sculpture out. It's not the same as sculpting, but it's closer to that than buying something off the shelf. And I had this
I think it's a lot like
internal like
what is it? Ceramics. It's like
for sure.
yeah.
But even then, ceramics is creation. You're creating. It's they literally, a god analogy is the potter. Like they
Yeah.
compare God to the potter because Adam is made of earth or clay. So it's like, yes, ceramics are godly in terms of taking a piece of earth and turning it into
I mean,
something that is usable. So that's what I'm like, I'm not trying, if anything, I'm trying to put creative arts on this pedestal that AI should never be even remotely close to.
how do we know that synthetic or like silicon-based life doesn't reproduce by 3D printing methodologies?
I mean, the more I get into 3D printing, the more I think that's what's actually happening. That's what it seems like. It's where it's like, oh, that's why my nephew looks like me. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it is. It's taking the block. It's taking the same filament in my DNA and RNA that he has and building something, and it only has so many combinations,
Yeah.
and most of those combinations are still going to look like me because it's working from the same DNA. And it's like, yeah, that's basically 3D printing. Like, yeah. So I'm the more I get into 3D printing and the more I get into circuit building and taking something from like back and forth between iteration, between like trying to make it in physical form and then having to go back in digital form and make adjustments and go back and forth. It's like I totally understand how an information based universe that has like an iterative algorithm would work at universal scale. Like the actual algorithm for the universe could be super simple, and information theory and holographic theory could actually have some super simple equations that work at universal scale if the recursive equation is written well, or if it works well enough. And so this is where the more I learn about like taking materials, turn them to one, and how much energy has to be put into that transformation process, it's like, oh, I see why alchemists were obsessed with turning things into gold, in that it's not the fact that it's gold. It's like if you can turn anything into gold, then you've basically mastered material. And it's like the hyper focus on the gold is like missing
Little
the
did they
power
know
of the
that like seeking
transformation.
the power to transmute matter into gold is like tapping into the power of a star going nova.
Right. I mean, it is. I mean, the fundamental elements of what allows for things to create is why life starts out, all life being sacred. In that, I think this is where there is the notion of like all life being sacred, but in the process, it's like humans can tarnish it because we have morality and we have ethics and we have self-reflection and analysis, whereas other animals that don't have these things don't. Like a shark eating another life isn't an affront to life itself. That's just part of the biological cycle.
Yeah, that's
A
supposed to
human
happen.
killing someone else is an affront to life. And in ways where this is why.
Well, that's one of the things that makes us human, is that we value life and that we don't seek
Right.
vengeance and we don't seek violence and things. And then that's how it's easy for people to slip and become inhumane or just stop being human.
But that's also where the systematic animalization of people is something that it's been perfected over generations. But this is also where it dawned on me that the same people who are trying to anthropomorphize AI are literally the same people who are trying to devalue creation and make it seem like humans are not important in the grand scheme, or that AI existing and AI using up our resources is better than if those resources were actually just dedicated to a human. And it's like that overlap, that Venn diagram is a fucking circle. And it's like we can't let those people dictate how the resources are allocated, in that we are super close to class warfare, in that we don't have to actually, everybody don't have to go Luigi if military industrial bankrupts itself. And what I think is happening is the stock market and the real estate market, they've gotten to a point where they've had to start gentrifying each other. They've had to start pump and dumping each other. They've had to start rug pulling each other to the point that they can't just go do it to an external, like an international community anymore. They can't do it to minorities in America anymore. And once they've done it to each other, that's when it starts to implode. And I think that's where we are in the cycle. And it's like now that's why we've seen China emerge, like ready to take the place of America on the global, in the global discussion. But also that's where, like, just waiting for America to fail is a strategy that a fucking 5,000-year-old empire can do. America is not even it, well,
America's pretty young.
We're really young to the point that, like, trying to compare ourselves to China is some super narcissistic American shit. So I'm not surprised that America would ever try to, like, make it seem like, oh, because we have more dollars on paper at this point in time, even though there are more than 4 times the amount of people and way better infrastructure, we're better on paper than China. Only some super young teenage narcissistic country would come in and try to put itself above China in that way. But that's where all China did was wait and wait and wait for that fucking narcissism to undermine itself. And now they're just sitting there like, hey, here, we're still here. So you guys ready to come to the table now? It's been a masterclass in the art of doing nothing. And that's where I'm like, man, I took Tai Chi 2 decades ago. So it's like I've always, for at least the past 2 decades, have understood the notion of, like, using the least amount of effort and energy possible from that perspective. And Jeet Kune Do is like the same thing. It's like if somebody throws a punch at you, it's better to move an inch than to move a foot if that inch is all it takes to get out of the way. And it's like those types of just slight philosophical adjustments have saved me so much energy over my life, but it's something that it's not part of the American mindset in general, in terms of, like, if somebody's using the least amount of energy possible, Americans call them lazy. That whole notion of work smarter, not harder, it's lost on most Americans. And only the smart Americans would be the ones you say it.
You know, that's also like a sign of a flawed morality. Trying to cast any kind of shadow on the concept of work smarter, not harder, just reflects a lack of education, of internalizing the value of education. And it doesn't even have to be like, you know, decades of education. It could be as simple as getting a certification over the course of a couple of weeks. They're like IT boot camps that train people how to, you know, get jobs doing entry level cybersecurity. Those boot camps only take 2 weeks. And that's for the person that already has, you know, and granted, that's for a person who already has a background in IT, but like a person who just wants to get into that, there are, like, you know, 3-semester programs at community colleges that prepare people for jobs within the IT industry. I also think that working on servers in a really loud ass co-location facility is actually harder than it sounds, and is very, like, psychologically draining, listening to that many fans and high pitched devices just whirring and all out of tune with each other.
Well, but on that note, I think we need to bring back the notion of learning for the sake of being able to understand, and not
just to get a job.
To get a job,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is what's been lost on, I think, at least 3 generations of they didn't have to know why they were doing things, in that the generations before us could not even go to school. They could just lie about going to school and they could get a job and learn on the spot and fucking end up in a career for 20 years and nobody would ever double check their fucking resume. Like, then we could go in, slight, like not without a resume, but we could go in without experience and then somewhat get trained on the spot. That didn't happen for the generation after us, and increasingly the generation out now has like no capacity for access at all. And so it's like going to school was never about getting into that. It just correlated with success because it was super easy to have success when there was capital flowing everywhere.
Well, I think that a lot of people went to pursue an academic career because they were sold the illusion that it was just like going to a trade school, and if you went and got your degree, you could become a professional in this field. But it's not like a trade school where trade schools exist to produce talented technicians in industries that are well defined and thoroughly described. Like, we need these kinds of roles filled, but that's not really how the academic process is.
I mean, it used to be
It
until
was.
minorities got access, and then they're like, actually, you know what? White guys, no, you don't need a college degree to come get this software design job. And then suddenly, these fucking dropouts could just waltz in and be the head of a fucking tech startup as long as they're white. But I never had that luxury, and I've seen this. What's happening in America is the result of that inability to allow minorities to do the same things as white people. Anytime minorities try, they're like, nope, we're shutting it down. I don't care if it fucks us over. We're not gonna allow minorities to run fucking startups and successful tech companies.
Oh, on a completely unrelated note, have you read anything about the Slate electric vehicle?
I actually met somebody that works at Slate randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a real company,
Okay.
and I what was funny is I'd seen speculation of Slate being Tesla anagram,
It is
and
a
then
Tesla anagram.
it is an anagram. I think it's coincidental in that the person I happened to meet that worked there is a woman, so that's something that like I don't think Tesla is hiring a woman. And then the cars don't look like shit,
Mm-mm.
so I'm that's like if the truck looked like shit, I would be more inclined to think it was Tesla. But it actually looks decent.
I think it looks perfect for what they're pitching. I think that it's actually a really exciting prospect in terms of an affordable electric vehicle.
And it's not over engineered, and I
It's
don't think Tesla is capable of not over engineering.
Tesla can't give us a base model car, but
Yeah.
this Slate is like the most base. It's like a high speed golf cart with airbags, and that's okay with me. I'm okay with that.
It's got like manual windows and shit.
Yeah.
And also it's a Bezos company, so like I don't think Elon and Bezos get along.
No, they're direct
So,
competitors in like
yeah.
across numerous industries. What I think is going to be funny is if we can like, order all of the options from Amazon, and then they show up at like some facility. Just go there and either pick them up and put them in yourself, or have somebody else install them. But I suspect we're going to see stuff like this available on Amazon soon.
See, what's funny though is Slate is the first company in my mind where I'm like, I feel like they should give me a car just to like the way that influencers get shit. I'm not like a huge influencer, but I'm the perfect person that they should give a car to just so like real people understand that Slate is not bullshit. Like
Dude.
you too, and you're the like we actually are like the perfect demographic for this type of thing.
I would
like
totally do a whole series.
Like we shouldn't buy one. They should give us one. Each one
I
of
would
us.
absolutely do a whole series on like a comparison against a 30-year-old Ranger and see if like, the mythical iconic Ranger that has its own damn song. Show me the song about the fucking S10, guys. Show me. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see how it stacks up against, the mythical Ford Ranger, because in my mind that's actually the benchmark for the mini truck. I know that the Slate website compares it to an old Toyota pickup, and that's cute. But
Having talked to the person, I know for a fact that they are not like they haven't rolled off the line yet. So
Yeah.
it's like I know that they wouldn't be able to give us one yet. And I don't even mean this facetiously in that like I know people are like, I want free stuff. But I mean
No,
literally
I would like
you and
literally
I are like
create
the
an
perfect
entire video series.
demographic.
We would create an entire
Yeah.
video series about it, and we would compare it to like a super reliable 30-year-old pushrod engine truck that does all the things. And if it stacks up, it's hard to deny reality if things actually stack up. But it's also, that's that's one of those things that is it's hard to really identify what this market is, or what its market is, because it's got to do a lot. It really does.
Well, and what's funny is before I was explained exactly what was going on, I'm like, it can't compete with the F-150 in America,
No, it has to.
and I know, but it can't. And then I was saying, this is like the only electric vehicle I've seen so far that could compete in the European market or that could compete in the Chinese market. And the representative's like, well, we're not. We're only going in America. And I didn't say anything, but internally I'm like, ooh, that's a fucking mistake. But it's like, they're gonna learn quickly that it's a mistake to only stay in the American market because it's not gonna
Yeah.
it's not going to immediately catch on. It's just not. It's gonna do well, but it's not going to do.
Well,
It's not going to hit the
its full
F-150's
its
numbers.
payload
It's just
capacity is actually right up there with like base model F-150s at like 1,400 pounds. I think it's just a couple
right.
hundred pounds below the standard bed capacity, and so it's probably capable enough for, I'm gonna say, 99% of people who have a truck.
But look, it's not about capability. We're talking about culture, man.
No, no, I
This
I
is
get what you're
culture.
saying. I'm just thinking in terms of like what is, if it's actually as capable as they say it will be, it'll cover the needs of most people.
Well, and if it was all about utility, if it was all about fucking that, all those people would already have Chinese
That's
trucks.
true. We'd also already be running solid state batteries that charge in 15 minutes to like 80% capacity. But I'm also getting I also get the impression that these are some, new technology batteries. Like the charging times seem pretty good for their size. Everything about it looks good. It's like on paper it looks like a very, very good prospect. So, I'm excited.
We'll see.
Yeah.